Good morning, everybody. Anthony Metivier here from magneticmemorymethod.com, and really excited to talk about how to memorize concepts today. This is an update of a video that I released many years ago, which has been quite popular, so we're going to go into it in a live setting and refresh it, and then maybe do a dedicated version later. But one of the things that I'm very excited about is that concepts are really the best thing to be memorizing at the end of the day. So let me know if you're with us live, where you are in the world, what you're doing. Time Lord is here. What a great thing to have you here, especially the Lord of Time, because we really need someone to lord over time. And really looking forward to a great live stream with you all today. So one of the things that we want to think about and consider is the role of concepts in our intellectual life and why we need to memorize them in the first place. And one of the reasons that we need to memorize concepts is so that we can grow in our minds. We can grow intellectually and make more connections. Ultimately, that's the real reason that we want to do this. And the more connections we have, the more connections we can make. And let me just move this light a little bit. There we go. Ooh, that's not working out as well as I thought. Let me see. Hold on. There we go. I think that'll fix everything. Yeah. All right. A little bit of chaos. Okay. So we want to make multiple connections in our minds. And in order to do that, we need to have things in our minds, ideally as much as possible. So connections are something that we make by memorizing them, committing them to memory. And there's a number of ways to do it, but we really need to use memory techniques. That's what we're going to talk about today, how to memorize concepts. And wow, it's a rainy day. Everything is falling apart. The lights fell over and everything. Anyway, if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And I want to warm up by saying thanks to Mohammed. He sent this wonderful image of himself with his magnetic memory method cup. And that's amazing. So that gave me an opportunity to send him a cool video just for people with their magnetic memory method cups. And that's a lot of fun. So thanks for that, Mohammed, and your kind words about what the magnetic memory method is doing for you. And if you also want to get one, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/swag, send me a pic, and you will get a secret video where there are no lighting problems in that video. And if you're joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And if you have any questions around the memorization of concepts, let me know, and we'll get into your questions and make this a little bit better. I'm not sure why the settings were all off this morning, but I apologize for that. All right. The other thing I want to mention is that we just launched a new video on the channel about memorizing poetry, and that was with Christian, and a lot of people really liked it. So if you haven't seen it, you might want to watch it because we go deep into the topic of memorizing poetry, and I'm just really grateful for the time that he spent with us all, and hope that you're able to check it out because it goes into some angles that you might want to consider when you're memorizing poetry yourself. And it relates to memorizing concepts because when you're memorizing poetry, you are memorizing not only word for word, but you're memorizing the conceptual material that is so important and essential to understanding what it is that you're saying. So Chanel is in the house in Akron, Ohio. Awesome. Thanks for saying hello, Chanel, and always good to see you. All right. So yeah, that's a new video that hope you can check out and enjoy, because Christian really has some great thoughts that he brought out there. And I'm just going to move this a little bit. There we go. And also, the other thing is that, I only have a small number of copies of the memory connection left. So it's already been sent out since I was letting you all know about that. And so if you want me to send you a physical copy, go to magneticmemorymethod.com/TMC. When I run out, then I will not be doing another print run. And At least there's no plans to, and I doubt that I ever will because of certain things that are much more exciting. But that doesn't mean this isn't exciting. It's just I got to make space in my closet for the next book. And the thing is that when you have one of these, then you have something from the memory tradition in physical form that that is cool, and a lot of people have it. And so the people who have already gotten it, I have a few of the actual print newsletters, so I've been sending them those print newsletters that I have remaining, but you'll get all the PDFs of the print newsletters and a couple other cool bonuses too, because they always came with a memory stick. Not a memory stick in the way that you're thinking, but you'll know what I mean when you see it. So that's going to be cool for you. And yeah, so the other announcement is that I'm going to do some workshops. And this is the Vivid Verses workshop. So if you are interested in a 5-week set of sessions where we will go deep into memorizing verbatim, verses in particular, can be poetry, can be scripture. I'm really focused myself on scripture, as you may know if you've been following the adventures, and having a great time with that. And so if you would like a workshop setting, very, very small group, and you'd like to join us, then if you're on my email list, you're getting announcements about that now. So just read and respond to those. Or if you're not on my email list and don't want to be for some reason, just email me directly. And my email is very, very simple, at magneticmarymethod.com. So that's that, and amazing what's going to happen when we get together. So that is a very, very private set of workshops for people. Now, let's get started with memorizing concepts and how we're going to master the memory palace technique to do it. So basically, you master the memory palace technique by making sure you have enough memory palaces, and you make sure that you are able to make complex ones, simple ones, relative to your level of skill. Sometimes you need simple ones for complex information. Sometimes you need complex ones for simple information. It all depends on where you're at. Don't overthink it, but make sure that you've mastered the memory palace technique. And, as a story, there was once upon a time when I didn't have it mastered and was really, really frustrated, overwhelmed, and that's not a good place to be. So you want to make sure you have the fundamentals. And so what you need to do is set goals. So the first goal should be to learn the technique, and then make sure that you use the technique to accomplish a goal. So whatever that goal might be, some vocabulary, some set of concepts, for example, that's what you need to do. And one of the things that really trips a lot of people up is they waste a lot of time learning the memory palace technique with stuff that doesn't actually help them. So they're using shopping lists, which is fine, but it's not really the dopamine creating effect of, wow, I memorized vocabulary in this language that I'm learning, and now I can use that vocabulary. That's where we're really going to get habit formation and this wow factor that just unlocks all of the floodgates of the brain, so to speak, which have a neurochemical basis in dopamine and myelin and opening up the opioid receptors and etc. I'm not a neuroscientist, but that's what happens, and you want to turn it into habit formation. So when it comes to memorizing concepts, you're going to need space for it because you're doing concepts in a way that's going to accumulate. You need multiple concepts. You need to be able to rack them and stack them. And so this is a powerful thing. And that's a great suggestion, Cherios. Thanks for being here. And if you're just joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And you can add a mind map, and there's a number of ways to do it. There's some simple ways. There's some more complex ways. If you've been in a live stream before and you like them, you can go watch one of the replays where we actually just found multiple memory palaces using mind mapping to discover more memory palaces. And there's many, many more. So that's a great suggestion. But there was a time when I was not mastering it and I was frustrated. And, I really did go through all those books. And this was at the University of Toronto, Robarts Library. Although I didn't do my degrees at the University of Toronto, I did them at York and one in Switzerland. I did have the privilege of having a little study cubicle, sort of like an office, in Robarts Library at University of Toronto, and that was wonderful. And so, one of the frustrating things about the amazing library is that people who had study carrels would lock the books that they had in their study carrels, and then you couldn't find them. So the computer would say that the book was available, but you couldn't find it, and that's because one of these students had them in their study carrels. I didn't do that unless that I really, really needed it, and I would try my best to make sure that I went and checked it out so that there wouldn't be people like me running around wondering why this book was showing that it was in when it was actually in a study carrel. So that was where being able to read really quickly was great, but I had to practice it and had to learn it and to memorize from the books. But you can overwhelm yourself if you need to memorize a lot of concepts, which if you're doing a PhD, you will, or even just other levels, high school. There's lots of things to memorize, right? But don't get frustrated. Don't feel like you have 1,000 pounds on your shoulders. Just learn how to use memory palaces correctly. You'll be able to memorize concepts much easier than you think. So Time Lord says, if I could learn how to use the magnetic memory method to memorize programming like JavaScript, I would be set. However, I have noticed programming is logic-based. Well, great. Thanks for that question. Give me an example of this logic that you're thinking of, and what exactly is it that you need to memorize that is logic-based, and let me know. Like, type it in. Give me a real example to work with, because this is one of the problems is people don't actually work with the material. So, and we'll talk about this a little bit later when we get into the Feynman Technique element of this, because the Feynman Technique is in some ways a memory technique, but one of the things is that people try to answer the question of how something is solved without actually diving in and doing what you would do to solve it, right? So when you say something like Time Lord is saying, I'm not sure why it's not showing up on our chat screen here. Your previous one did, but I'm gonna type it in again, see if I can get it to show up so everybody can see if they're somewhere else on the internet. The reality is that if you will just get yourself set by taking action, then you're going to be able to see how it will work. Somehow we're having a very strange technical issue day today. Not sure why our stuff isn't showing up on the screen. I'd sure like it to. Oh, here's no. When it pains, it roars. You ever hear that one? Okay, so now we were getting it all up here. Okay, great. A little bit too quickly. But yeah, you're saying if I could learn how to use the magnetic memory method to memorize a programming language like JavaScript, I would be set. However, it's logic-based. So again, let me know what it is. Dexter saying you could memorize the syntax of JavaScript. Great. I mean, I need to see what this actually looks like. But the reality is that I don't see anything, can't imagine anything that can't be memorized. But if you're not actually putting the examples out there, we can't work with them. So, but logic, anything that it can be expressed in words or symbols can be memorized. There's nothing that I can imagine that is somehow magically or otherwise out of the realm of human memory. I really can't think of what that would be. So pump in examples. And I've got an example in mind, but it's not related to what you're talking about. The whole point of these live streams, and here's an interesting sort of angle about them, is people often, ask questions, but they don't come with specifics, is that you've got the opportunity to have some questions answered, but there's nothing to really that we can't generalize about it. We need to work with specifics. So bring the specifics. All right, Time Lord's working on an example. As you do that, let's carry on. You got to essentially translate the concepts into magnetic imagery. What's the science behind this? Why does it work? Well, because a lot of this information is semantic, and then to make it easier on your brain, you figure out how to make it episodic and sometimes figural. And we've talked about that on previous live streams, and obviously those are replay situations, but you are free to go watch the replays that haven't been taken down. And one of the things that you can do to practice translating concepts into magnetic imagery is just learn the techniques and start using them. I mean, there's no getting around the fact that this is a skill. And if you put the skill into action, then you will find out exactly how they work, and then you'll see how to use them. So you learn it by doing it. And the more that you do it, the more you learn about it. You need to be a student of your own mental imagery. And everybody has mental imagery, even those who have been duped into thinking that they don't. And those people are sometimes called aphantasics. And they have mental imagery. They just have been tricked out of it. It's very, very sad what we see in this realm right now. But last week, we talked about the aphantasia cure and on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast. So if you are in that situation and you'd like to, get out of it, then you'll have a great time. All right. So Dexter says document.getElement. Okay, we'll look at that in a second. And Kyle says, any good resources for mind maps, and why don't you have a dedicated course on it yet? Well, Kyle, the things that I have to say are already in the masterclass for you. Mind Map Mastery, I agree with Dexter. Good book. Highly recommend reading it, but not without also reading 101 Top Tips for Better Mind Maps by Phil Chambers. Really, really important to get those two together. And why I don't have a course about it yet is because I am looking into doing certification so that I can actually just teach directly from what I've learned from Tony Buzan instead of inventing a bunch of new stuff. Although I do have quote unquote new stuff. I don't know, maybe other people have done it in their mind mapping and so forth, but it's certainly not in Buzan. It's not in Phil Chambers' work. And Kyle, you have access to the basics of this already in the FAQ section of the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass. And Mind Map Mastery is great, but I don't think Mind Map Mastery is as great without 101 Top Tips for Better Mind Maps. So, sorry, Tony, but you should have asked Phil if you could put an appendix at the back, and then it would be the complete book on Buzan style mind mapping. All right, so we got some JavaScript here. Let's see, document.getElements by ID. So why would you memorize that, Dexter? One of the things I never understand is why would people memorize this? What is that going to do? Why memorize that code? And what benefit is it going to have? And if we go back to Time Lord's original question, the question is about logic. So what is the logic here? We need to really understand what exactly it is that we're talking about. This is important. So Kyle says, also, how do you recommend I broaden my knowledge of associations? Like I could watch TV shows and stuff to learn new people, but it seems time consuming and I'm a bit off track from my memory specifics. Great question, Kyle. Yeah, I mean, I have that sort of situation too in some sense because lately I haven't really been enjoying watching movies as much. And so there is that kind of thing, like not memorizing the names of characters to develop a new pool, etc. But it hasn't really stunted anything. So the main answer I have for you, playing cards. Do you have a 00 to 99 or do you have 52 images so that you can memorize cards? That will help you because I feel that what got me much, much better with association was paying some attention and paying my dues to cards. And there's a story behind how cards came to be so central. as someone who doesn't compete, but then I went and competed, and we did cards, and blew me away what happened when I did it. I learned a ton from the exercise. I learned a ton from talking about it afterwards with Dave Farrell, and he's got Guinness World Records. It's quite amazing how well I did. Sat next to that guy. It's quite it just blows me away. But then he told me some stuff that changed my practice and improved everything across the board. Now I don't have it here. I'm not gonna go and get it off the shelf. But he also gave me a book that I don't even know if it's available out except directly from him. But it's got some pretty wildcat ideas. But and he talks about the core of it on the Magnetic Brain Method podcast. So look up the Dave Farrell episode. He was telling me at one point that he was going to do that book again. But that's the number one thing, Kyle, is cards. If you don't want to spend time on movies, once you can memorize a deck of cards, literally 5 to 10 minutes a day will rewire your brain. Why? Well, because you're just going to get used to looking at one thing and thinking of another. So, this is Jethro Tull with a flute, right? And this is a horse, the Nightmare, right? And this is a cheetah. This is a Dodge Ram truck, purple, and so on. This is a lamb, Lammy the Lamb. This is the Michelin Man, tire, right? I can just go through the whole thing. This is Tipper Gore with tape. This is Tax, Tucker Max with Tax, and so on. This is a movie, right? Max Maven with a movie, and so on. Leash, Licorice, etc. This one I like. This is Jack Nicholson. He's a little bit nutty. So you just look at it and you're seeing one thing: Liv Schreiber and Leafs. Often he's blowing leaves, right? This is the samurai from the Kurosawa movie Ran. Ooh. And when you can just do that, and then you just practice putting them in multiple different orders, just shuffle it up, put it together, do all your fun shuffles. Australia is not so fun for shuffling because my hands are always sweaty in the heat, but shuffle it up any way that you want, get a new order, do some fancy cuts, like that, which are very hard when your hands are sticky. But I still like to do it. And then, look, and then go, oh, there's Condoleezza Rice with her rice, right? And then, now Condoleezza Rice is with the mailman from Mr. McFeely, I think his name was, from Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood. I never gone to check if that's his actual name, but I think that's what his name was. But anyway, that's what I'm doing. And now, so I think of Condoleezza Rice with that, and then I think of this is now Jim Carrey with a liar. Which is like a pun, and that's one of the things I learned from Dave Farrell is to use puns more often, because I used to just have a liar, like the idea of a liar, Lyre, and then I went to Jim Carrey in Liar Liar with a liar, and that's a pun, and that's something I learned from Dave Farrell, and there's a little tip for you there too. Go compete, because I have no interest in competing, but I wound up competing, and I learned so much from that, and that book he gave me has cool ideas. Anyway, that's a suggestion for you, is to do that. Then the other suggestion is just to keep studying and implementing, but just 5 to 10 minutes a day. You don't even have to do a whole deck. I rarely do a whole deck. I don't want to spend that much time. I just want to get the exercise. I want to get the fitness. So it's like shuffle 13 cards, or one of the things when I reread Farrell's book, I started to think, I remembered how he had told me he does about 6 cards a station, or I don't think he really uses that word, even though I think it boils down to that. And I just thought, I'm going to try that. And then boom, I figured out, but I prefer 3 to 5. And then that's a whole nother level of practice for you that I think you'll find really wonderful. And in 15 minutes a day, 5 to 15 minutes a day, you'll rewire your brain. You will think so differently about the techniques. You'll be much faster with them, and you'll have no need for more images in quite the same way. You'll just be really good with the images that you have. And I find, and you might find it differently in your practice, but I find that it actually just makes it much better across the board in many, many ways to just have more ideas, even if you're not feeding it in as much with movies. Now, that said, keep reading books. So for me, I'm always reading more books and accumulating more information from those books. So that just adds more stuff. Like I wound up reading a book about George Washington, which I never would have expected I'd read books about George Washington. But George Washington became part of my psychology because, I looked at his dates, committed those to memory, and or rather his dates of service, and commit those to memory, and then move on from there. And then he becomes part of the world, right, of the imagery. So it doesn't have to be watching movies. You can also just movies. And, I just was looking at Feynman today. If memory serves, actually, we just saw Eight of Hearts. So I think I saw that he died in 88, born in 1918. And, I already had Feynman in memory, but now that I add those things, I saw that I saw that he was born in Queens. And then having those dates, now I just feel like kind of closer to him. I don't think I'd ever have used him in my memory stuff before, but now I probably will, because I just, I looked at them and I looked at that stuff and I just thought, 88, okay, so that's the Jethro Tull thing, Eight of Hearts, and then 18, and it's just like a different thing. And it's in your mind. So just memorize stuff. Even if you don't do recall rehearsal to get it into long-term memory, just memorize it. Because anytime that you can do that, you just see dates or numbers or whatever, you're practicing the techniques that make you faster and apply it to things, and then they become new images for you. All right. So let's check in with our chat here. Dexter says it's not the syntax that is the problem, it's the whole use of the logic part. Or Time Lord says that to Dexter. Dexter says sometimes when you work with multiple languages, you have to look up to do certain things in multiple languages. It would be nice just to have it. Great. So then find out what those are. Don't just think it would be nice. But what are those specific things? Like 80-20 rule it even. Just take the 20% of a list that you create. And then if it would be just nice to have it, then look at it and say, how nice. Like, for example, knowing Richard Feynman's dates. We'll talk about him later. It was like nice to have it. But do I really need to have it? I'll decide later if I'm going to go through the whole recall rehearsal shebang to get it into long-term memory. I just have it now in I don't know. I don't even know what the use of terms like short-term and long-term memory are, because I just looked at it and I don't know. You can check my accuracy or not, but his Wikipedia, I'm pretty sure, says he died 88, born 18 in Queens. That's what I saw. And it was just on the little feature box there. I didn't go much deeper than that. And so if short-term memory exists, versus long-term memory, I don't know exactly what the distinctions are, but that assumes that actually I got that correctly. It's just something you got to play with yourself, something you got to do for yourself. Make the decision. Do you want it for long-term memory? If I want it for long-term memory, then I got to do a little bit more, make sure that it's there. If I don't, then, no big deal. Let it go. Maybe I'll still have it. So there you go. So you guys are solving the logic thing. Logic comes from practice. Yeah. And that's what we're going to get to ultimately, because there's some memory experts out there, some learning experts out there that are saying some things that I think are pretty bad about how you need to understand things before you memorize them. And I don't agree with that at all, because there's a lot of stuff that I've memorized that I don't understand. And quite frankly, I don't understand 88 and I don't understand 18, right? I just know that they're somehow associated with the concept of time and now with Richard Feynman, assuming those dates are correct. I'm tempted to now check it out, to look it up. But in any case, and I don't understand those things as such, but they're there and I don't need to understand them. They're not to be understood in the sense of, understand it before that you memorize it. But also a lot of the A lot of the Sanskrit phrases that I've memorized, I understood them after I memorized them, not before. And there would be no way to understand them except through deep memorization. And I think this is very, very true of Zen, that I've been also reading a lot about. There's a lot of people who are locked out of this because they don't do the memory stuff, and they don't deal with it from within. So this is an issue. Memorize stuff. That's the answer. Memorize it in different ways. All right. So thanks to Reclaiming Life for mentioning that the Dave Farrow podcast is from 17th of December 2015. Okay, that's a long time ago now. It's not that long ago, but it feels long ago. And yeah, that's still up, available for you all on the podcast. Give it a listen. It's quite a good one. So Chanel says Feynman died in 88. So is that what I was saying? 88? I believe so. I didn't see where he died, but I would guess California. So you can add guessing to memorizing. But I think that was the number I was saying, 88. Which in my 00 to 99 PAO is the Jethro Tull guy with the flute there. And why the flute? Because flute is fife, 8 is F or V, FF, fife. Pretty obscure one maybe, but give it a try if you need an 88. Anybody else have an 88? What's your 88? Pop it in the chat if you're with us. Anyway, to memorize concepts, very, very simple. Master the Memory Palace technique. Translate the concepts into magnetic imagery. Can you just go from translating the concepts into magnetic imagery without a Memory Palace? Yes and no. And here's why. You will always have your images in space. That's why. Even when I'm thinking about these dates that I just sort of passingly encoded, just saw them, made images for, or applied images for, it's almost like that little snippet on the Wikipedia page is the Memory Palace. Because when I think, what was it? And then what did I create? It's just somehow fused there. So I'm always using the Memory Palace, and I believe everybody else is always using the Memory Palace, even if they aren't. It's just then the question of the efficiency of the Memory Palace, right? And for quick little things, a Wikipedia sidebar on page 1 of Google, when it's just 2 things, that's as efficient of a Memory Palace as you're going to get. You don't even have to create it. You're just aware that that's where you saw it, right? Assuming that this is correct, and my guess apparently is not bad, assuming that I just said California a few minutes ago. I don't memorize what I'm saying sometimes in real time, but I think that's what I said. All right. So, Time Lord says, I'm having a hard time of thinking of an example. There are lots of moving parts. I will have to think longer and email you this question. Great. Time Lord says 88 is a bit rude. Well, that's okay. I mean, that's the point, right? You got to make it meaningful to you. I can think of 2 things there that you might make it stronger with, right? Because that's just abstract. That's abstract. We know that. But there's a really fun picture of Johnny Cash doing that. And if you're Canadian, you might remember that Pierre Trudeau was apparently did that one time in Canada when he was campaigning to be the prime minister. And it was the period, I think I don't know, I remember hearing this long before I would have used memory techniques to memorize it, but they called it something like the Pierre Trudeau salute, or maybe it was the Salmon Arms salute or something like that, because he was in British Columbia on the train when he did it. Anyway, it was before my time, but I remember my parents speaking about it at one point. And interesting. All right. Great one, Reclaiming Life. You gotta be careful these days, though, because the PC culture has gotten so extreme that even those words, they can penalize a channel. So I'm not going to read that one out loud, but it doesn't really matter because the robots can read it. Maybe it won't affect our channel, but it certainly has affected others. And I was not aware that 88 was somehow in their symbolism, but very interesting. Time Lord says Rosie O'Donnell also did it at a baseball game. Okay, yeah, I think not Rosie. Was it Rosie O'Donnell? Roseanne Barr. Oh yeah, okay. Yeah, well, Rosie O'Donnell and Roseanne Barr are just different enough to be the same person in some way. I get you. I get the slip there. I mean, and I do mean that they are just different enough to be the same person. All right. So if you do think of something, Time Lord, that's great. But I think you're maybe already identifying the issue with programming that I come up again and again and again with. People ask me, can you memorize programming languages? Look, if it's just the syntax, absolutely. But what is the point? What's the big win? And if it's just, well, it would be nice, that's not going to motivate many people to memorize, the amounts of JavaScript that would be required, to make it useful. But if it's just document get element by ID, first thing I think of with document is, remember back with Microsoft Word with Clippy or whatever the heck his name was. I don't remember what his name was. This little animated dude. So I'd think of that. Then, get element. Well, I think of get smart. And an element, well, maybe I'd see the Fifth Element movie or the Seventh Element song or whatever. BYLD is kind of like bold or by. I know a guy who has a name like that, Charles Bird. He's been on the Magnetic Memory Method podcast, so I might think of that. Like it's trivial memorizing that. What matters is what is the benefit, and then if you tell me what the benefit is, then identify the core stuff that would create that benefit, and then memorize it. And if somebody can finally answer that question for me and say, this is what we got to memorize, then we can maybe put a course around it. And then we can actually explain to people, hey, this course is going to help you with this, and this, because you've memorized this stuff. Now, I know code is often evolving, changing, new codes, etc. And it might not be that I'm the right person to create such a course, but I've done this for years now. Nobody can answer those simple questions. So the answer is, if you need to memorize document.get element by ID and you're passionate enough to save time or whatever it is, dive in and do it. It's trivial. Memorize. It's very, very simple to memorize. So just do it. What's stopping you? Backlaw is in the house. Good to see you. I should say, actually, you're in the Memory Palace. Welcome to our shared Memory Palace. Thanks for saying hello. And Reclaiming Life says, didn't even think about the bots. Good call, not reading it out loud. Yeah, it's spooky times, man. I don't know if you guys watched Tim Poole, but he had an interesting video out the other day, and you worry now, like, oh, am I not, like, when do they send out the algorithm to unperson Jordan Peterson? Like, I've talked about Peterson on the podcast. The algorithm can search my voice, can search the words, etc. Just delete this channel because I have been involved in thought crime. And it sounds retarded. It sounds, shouldn't use that word either. It sounds crazy, but it's actually happening. It's happening as we speak. So crazy times. And all the hard work I did getting a PhD to watch universities being destroying themselves is tremendously sad. I was considering doing a video on, directed to Cambridge and so forth, but it would just be more noise. I don't know that it's really the use of this channel to do so. So I didn't. I decided not to. I hope that was wise, but it wasn't for lack of courage or lack of speaking out. I just decided to spend the time on memory training issues, whether that was right or wrong. And maybe you can let me know. But, wow, unbelievable. And there were people who went to war to buy the freedoms that they are trying to kill. Unbelievable. It's actually offensive what they're doing. But I'm also trying to scrub out my ego, so keep calm and carry on. The world is, in some ways, just fine as it is. And that's not self-delusion. it actually is pretty okay. Just depends on how we look at it. Backlol, I have to ask one thing. You say how to remember the spelling of any word using a memory palace. 1, make sure you're really good with memory palaces. 2, try creating an alphabet list. 3, use the alphabet list to combine with the memory palace. And then, as we say right here, translate the concepts or translate the letters into magnetic imagery with your alphabet list. There's your answer. So give it a try. And thank you for asking that. There's more detail on that in the Magnetic Memory Method Masterclass, actually, but that's the long and short of it. All right. So, Reclaiming Life says his main channel comes out new every day at 4 p.m. EST. So his is Tim Price or Tim Poole. Sorry, did I say Tim Price earlier? That was a parapraxis, not a great thing. But Tim Poole is who I meant. Timcast. Right. Yeah, like he's really smart. He's hedging his bets by having multiple channels. I actually emailed Subverse, which is one of his initiatives, and asked about doing like a video column about memory and technology. And I haven't heard back from them, but I'll persist and email again. You could tweet them, tell them I'm trying to get in touch with them if you like, and obviously they would decide. But it would be cool to do some reporting from the more where videos could be delivered to an audience that cared more, where the time is best spent. But not that the audience cared more, but that we weren't focused on memory, so that I could have a place to talk about that, but also connect it to memory and to learning. Because I think one of the key problems right now is digital amnesia, and also that people, they're really fried, they're really fried out with digital overwhelm, and they're making judgments based on things that they can't understand, but that they feel like they have the ability to understand it, but they can't even possibly have consumed enough of the other person's content to intelligently reflect on it, or better said, to intelligently comment on it. And that's really bad. The people are losing their modesty. And so it's digital amnesia plus the illusion that you have consumed more content more thoroughly than you think that you have, which leads to a lot of problems. So I have a lot to say about it, and I have some solutions. And so that's why I reached out to him, and maybe I'll hear back from him. And, these things these days, sometimes you need more than one fist knocking at the door. So if you want to email and say, help make him aware, or tweet, or whatever you do, that could help make it happen. So consider yourself requested. Adolfo is in the house. Good to see you, Adolfo. Always great to see you. Richard's here in Florida. Excellent. How are you doing, by the way, Adolfo? Wonderful that you're here. Sienna is here from Germany. Well, guten Abend, must be evening there. Wie geht's dir? Thanks everybody who's joining us. Hit that thumbs up. Say hello in the chat. Sienna says 88, 2 snow people doing dirty things. All right, I like that. The dirtier the better. The dirtier the better. All right, so let's carry on here. William says I'll try to contact him and tell him to check it out, because it sounds like something in line with his views as well. Yeah, I thought so. It's just, how do you get through the noise? How do you get through gatekeepers, etc.? But I did write a considered email with the suggestions, and I sent it to the Subverse channel. So if you do write them, I appreciate that very much. Let them know that you got to write it the way you would write it, but my request to my audience was just to double down on the amount of knocks on the door, just because I think this is super important. Not going to try to save the world, but I think it could help for people to be more aware of digital amnesia and some of the solutions for it, and it could lead to better conversations. And people like Tim are having better conversations, and they are fostered, granted the time because of the support from their audiences to spend more time in study. And that's very, very positive. And so one of the things that's kind of cool that's happening right now is that you're seeing like the safety and the protection of tenure being transformed into something else. It's just not safe yet, but I think it will be when blockchain evolves, because I think some things are coming with blockchain that will help protect people in the way that tenure used to maybe and should be doing now. Because, I remember my own supervisor, my Dr. Vater, for the German in the house, my Dr. Father of my PhD, he worked so many years to get tenured. By the time that he got tenured and was protected against getting fired to really speak his mind, he was too tired to speak his mind anymore. He'd worked too hard. And that's really, really sad. Now, in the technology, I don't mean to be overly concerned, but by the same token, it would be ridiculous not to be concerned in terms of watching what you say, knowing where the robots can go, where the algorithms can go, in terms of just like, hey, you talked about X back in 2019, you're gone. Mass scale deleting. That's a scary time. All right. So, Andrea is here from Italy. Good to see you. Thanks for being here. Wonderful, wonderful. You have the Nolan in your country. I just posted the other day one of the pics I took with the Bruno statue. Love that. I love Italy. I spent quite a lot of time in Rapallo. Beautiful place, beautiful place. All right. Time Lord asks, Anthony, do you sign Personalize Your Memory Connection book when someone orders it? Hey, thanks for asking. If you want one of the remaining copies, order it at magneticmemorymethod.com TMC, which is the memory connection. And let me know that you want it signed, because the ones that I've sent out since that I offered you first as the YouTube audience, because one of these days I will send the email out. And when I send this to my email list, the remaining copies will be gone. But I wanted to offer it to the YouTube people first, because I know a lot of YouTube people aren't on my email list. I don't know why, but they aren't. But yeah, I will sign it for you. But the reason why I wouldn't automatically sign it is because there's a theory in book collecting that signed books are less valuable at the end of the day. That's a theory, but I have it from first editions, that is. But I have that from somebody back in the day, and it's stuck in my head. And he basically said it's kind of rude to collectors to sign without them asking you explicitly to do so. And it seems weird to me to say to someone, do you want my book signed? Like, I don't know. Somehow it's just like a weird thing. Maybe I'm too old school and polite. I don't know. But I don't assume people want my books signed. So if you want it signed, just let me know and I will do that. But when I send these out personally, I do write a nice little letter. So you get a signature one way or the other. But if you want the actual book signed, and here's the thing you should know. When I sign my books, I sign them upside down. And the reason I do that is because I'm left-handed and I don't want to bend the cover. But if I sign it this way, the cover will get all bent. Anyway, I'm weird about books. I'm a little bit precious. My friend Ricky, back in school, talk about primacy effect. He used to read books like this, only as big as he could get them open. And that was to not crack the spine. And I've been a little bit precious with books too. Unfortunately, in Australia, it's so sweaty here. I sometimes am embarrassed insofar as I have an ego that hasn't been scrubbed out enough to be embarrassed that, white covers, they get sweat stains on it. Canadians sweating like crazy in Australia. No complaints. No complaints. I love Australia. All right. Let's see here. Thumbs up for the Spidey Cup. Yeah, everybody thumbs up for the Spidey Cup. Spider-Man is awesome. You know why? Because he's awesome. That's a tautology for the day. I love tautologies, like Tigger. The wonderful thing about Tiggers is Tiggers are wonderful things. Speaking of memorizing concepts, memorize that one. It's a tautology, right? So there's an example for us of memorizing concepts. How would you memorize the concept of tautology? What would be your image? Those of us joining now, my image doesn't matter. What would be your image? Tautology, what is it? Tautology is a circular argument. And what is that? Well, a circular argument is when the premise is repeated in the conclusion, right? And speaking of which, William, another channel I got to get in touch with. I have the cup, but the cup it doesn't show up quite well, is Rationality Rules. I love that channel. Anyway, yeah, that's what a tautology is. But if you want to practice together, type in what you would use. Even if you already know what a tautology is, what would you memorize it? Mine is, my imagery doesn't matter. I mean, it matters to me, but it's not the thing that will help you. What will help you is the practice of producing the imagery and then testing it, making sure it has all the magnetic modes, etc. So, Backlall says, please upload the PDF of this book on my website. I'm not sure I'm going to release an ebook version of it, to be honest. If I do, then people on my email list will hear about it. And if you're not on my email list, you're missing out on so much. Right now, there's this like training going out that is really helping people and is making them think differently about memory. I got more email responses in the last 5 minutes than I can answer in the rest of the day, but I will answer them because people are telling me, wow, like I'm starting to get this stuff, right? But you're missing out. You're missing out if you're not on my email list. I understand that not everybody wants to be on email lists, but we shall see. We shall see what we can do to encourage more people to be on the email list. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, one of the problems with all these guys with their crowd support and stuff like that is that they lose it when they build it on other platforms. But email is the thing. Email is the thing, for sure, for now. So make sure if you want to be contacted to be in contact by email. So that answers Chanel's question as well. But thank you for asking. Thank you for your interest. And quite frankly, look, as a memory expert, I can't even really recommend reading this book in particular on digital. This book in particular, I might end up reprinting it. I don't think so. But I have to think long and hard about whether this book makes sense in a PDF. I'm not sure yet. So if I ever do release it as an ebook, you'll know if you're on my email list. I'm not sure. Well, you'll have to tell me. I'll maybe get a couple of people to tell me. Maybe the people who already have it, if Arvinder shows up, he can say his opinion. And maybe I can ask, because there's a lot of people who have it. And they will, I'll ask them what they think. Will it work? We'll see. But I have actually released it on the PDF a couple of times, so I'll ask those people as well. All right. So Reclaiming Life says, if you get a first edition of a book where they supposedly all signed and numbered and the author intentionally sends out one unsigned and not numbered, it's much more valuable to the collectors. Okay. Signed and numbered. I got it. Oh, I see. I got it. Okay. Awesome. Thank you. Yeah, anyway, books are an interesting thing. And the person who's editing my next book, which the title is still not being released, even though I'm quite sure it will be the title, he's really into books, and he's done a lot of work with books in an antiquarian sort of setting. All right. And Reclaiming Life says, I thought you were going to say, oh, maybe I shouldn't say it. I like him too. And I now that you mention it, I wonder if he sells that cup. I wouldn't mind getting that cup. I've shown PewDiePie's cup, Pew News, a couple of times, not mentioning it, just like turning it around. That's a fun cup. All right. I love cups. And thanks to the people who have sent me the cups. I received a couple now. I always love this one, the best from Julie. Always be yourself. Unless you could be Batman, then always be Batman. And Maricela, if you're watching this later, I have yours, but I put them over there to bring them out next Christmas. But now I realize that I actually, I thought of using it as a replacement for the Evil Dr. Forget, but it doesn't work as Evil Dr. Forget, because the thing that makes Evil Dr. Forget is those eyes. And the cup that Maricela sent me doesn't have those evil eyes and that evil smile. So this is the Evil Dr. Forget. And if I ever build a big version, then I have to make a big Evil Dr. Forget. Let's see here. So, where are we here? Thanks everybody for your great comments. Hit the thumbs up if you're just joining us. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. Yeah, Dexter, definitely a snake biting its own tail. That's what I originally used for the 0 in the major. Beautiful image. So Baclaw asks, where could I get the hard copy of this? Great, thanks for asking. Let me pop the link for you in the chat. And I better test it. You never know. My memory might be bad on my own links. I'm actually surprised how many that I actually remember correctly. So it should be TMC. Hope I typed that correctly. I can't even properly see. And you can order it directly from there. The last ones I just sent out, they said it was going to be 8 days or so from Australia to the UK. And I'm not going to click that now to make sure that it works, but I probably should just test it in case I need to send you another one. But I think that's correct. And yeah, I appreciate anybody who wants to grab it. Oh wow, it's ruined it. Anyway, I'm sure that's the right link. You'll enjoy. It has some special features, and because I also have some of the print newsletters, I'll throw in a couple of those for you as well. And you'll get all the PDFs of the print newsletters and some other things. All right, so Sienna says, Tigger as a totalitarian dictator eating its own tail. Awesome. That's a great one. Andrea says, then I don't know very well how to proceed. I didn't well understand what the word is about. All right, well, it's a concept, and it's one that's really, really important if you're studying rhetoric, discourse, the way people talk with one another, because a lot of people don't know how to make effective arguments. And one of the reasons that they fail in arguments is because they're often having circular reasoning. So I don't have any examples of tautologies in actual things that actual people say at the moment, but it's a real problem in argumentation. And so Tigger isn't making a problem when he says the wonderful thing about Tiggers is that Tiggers are wonderful things. It's just when I taught critical thinking for a couple of years, 4 years in total. And to help students understand that the premise is repeated in the conclusion, basically his premise is that Tiggers are wonderful things. His evidence is that Tiggers are wonderful things. And his conclusion is, therefore, that Tiggers are wonderful things. Well, that doesn't stand to reason because it's circular reasoning, right? The evidence cannot support the claim because it is the claim, right? So this is a real problem. Now, tautology can be used in a different way as well. Like in film studies, for example, you have what's called architectonic tautology. And in this case, and this is not just film studies, it's in narratology, better said. In this case, you might see a Western, for example, and at the beginning of the Western, the cowboy rides into town, and one of the things that the cowboy notices on the way into town is the hangman's noose. And if you are a narratologist, the first thing you're going to say is, by the end of that movie, he's either going to have that noose around his neck, or he's going to be hanged, or he's going to help somebody escape from being hanging, or whatever, because the noose is an architectonic tautological image. It's going to circle back. It's in the premise and it's going to come back. This is also sometimes called Chekhov's principle, where Chekhov said, if you have a gun hanging on the wall in the first act, it better fire in the third. Somebody better shoot that gun. Otherwise, don't have it there, right? So it's a tautological structure in narrative, or architectonic tautology. Beautiful term. I love it. Memorize it. It will serve you well when you watch movies, because you'll see it all the time once you know that it exists. And then you add on some other features. But anyway, we're not here to talk about film studies today. But when you memorize the concepts, you memorize the words that explain the concepts, your whole world unlocks. You watch movies at a much deeper level, and you enjoy them at a much deeper level. You read novels at a much deeper level. You enjoy them at a much deeper level. You read other books of philosophy much better because you understand these concepts and how they apply across disciplines, etc. So, memorize concepts. I hope that it helps explain it to you a little bit better, Andrea. And thanks for letting us know. And give it a try. Look it up. Google is your friend. Let's see. So Chanel asks, the reason I ask is because I can't read an actual print book when I have my text-to-speech software on my iPad Pro. Read me a digital book. Okay, well, thanks for letting me know that, Chanel. I'll consider that. That is a compelling reason why to... there are a couple of compelling reasons why to make it available in digital, so I'll consider that and possibly make that so. Speaking of text-to-speech, I am probably going to narrate my next book myself, and that's going to be fun. All right. So, or I might get a professional to do it. I don't know if I actually have narration skills for long audiobooks, but I'm going to consider it and give it the good old college try, at least a couple chapters. Adolfo says, what helps me with the memorization of concepts is linking a metaphor imagery after the definition imagery. Right, okay. That makes sense. That's good to try. Very good. Yeah, what Adolfo is saying here, and please pay attention to it, is that you may consider when you do what you're doing, and you may consider changing the order in which you do things. And one of the things I've learned from watching what Adolfo does is that there is a kind of interesting grammar to the creation of magnetic imagery. And when you follow that grammar, when you change it, experiment with changing it, and even like the way that he has used some bridging figures, even their body having a particular kind of grammar and then fancy teleportation techniques and so forth, it's just amazing, amazing. So that's something to try in your own practice. And yeah, that's exactly right. Never show something in the first act that won't be used by the second. The thing that narratologists are fascinated by, William, is why does that occur? Like, it occurs in narratives by intention. This is what a script doctor does. When I used to do story consulting, and I'll never forget seeing my name in the screen, the big screen with script doctor beside it. That was wild. You're pushing for them to change the script so it has that, right? Because it's part of audience fascination. But the reality is that a lot of people just do it naturally. They do it in their storytelling naturally. And so what is it about humans that evolved that? And why did they? And then why do some people, like, there's studies, and this may be useful actually to helping people use memory techniques better, because there's a lot of studies about like how people tell stories, because they'll say, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then, but they won't weave the story together. They won't sort of narrate it. They won't give any emotional flavor to it, etc. So that might be interesting, because I think that that's part of what Adolfo is saying here as well. All right. So Sienna says, like, bhakti, goal. Bhakti means bhakti evidence equals bhakti jai kali. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I mean, I don't know that much Sanskrit yet. I only know the ultimate goal, which I think is paragati, which is in the end part of Gary Weber's selection of verses from the Ribhu Gita, which is very beautiful. All right, so let's carry on here. What you can do with concepts is use the PAO, where and when it's useful, and then understand and use recall rehearsal. So there are times when numbers will really, really help you, and you don't necessarily have to use them to memorize numbers. You can also use them to memorize concepts, or you can use sometimes the whole PAO that you've created for yourself as a memory palace itself. We've talked about that before and given you some little suggestions around that. And then you need to use recall rehearsal. Very, very important. Very, very important. And that's really how you memorize concepts. So what you want to do is you want to have some memory palaces, have some concepts you need to memorize. You know that you need to memorize them. You know that memorizing them will improve your life, that you have some bhakti here, as Sienna is saying, or you have a goal, and then you sit down and memorize them and you realize your goal, and then you use recall rehearsal. And I got some more suggestions for you that I think will really help. Like, for example, don't always try to understand things first. Memorize, then work on understanding after memorization. And I've been really, really sad to see a couple of memory experts tell people, understand before you memorize. I simply can't see this as good advice. I can't. It just doesn't make sense to me, because there's so many things that I've memorized and understood later. Everything from language learning, where, you can't possibly understand every possible word, meaning of a word. And in philosophy, you can't possibly understand every use of something like tautology. We talked about 2 here today. There's probably more, right? You can't possibly understand it all. And so what if you don't understand any of it and you just memorize it and then you reflect on it, and now it's in your brain chemistry. And then you look at it from the angle of it being in your chemical bath. This, I think, is a better approach. Will is in the house. Good to see you, Will. Thanks for saying hello. Always good to see you. If you're just joining us, thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking. And Reclaiming Life says, I believe it's due to the repetition giving it more meaning and making a point stick better, and minds wanting as much meaning as possible. It's the same reason recall rehearsal works so well, the repetition of something with more meaning and associations. Yeah. It's also sometimes called the accretion of narrative value over time, because it's not necessarily that it just appears here and there. And then when you have sound bridges and all kinds of stuff, that can help as well. And of course, sound is one of the missing elements in so many people's memory palaces. The other thing is don't give up. Don't give up at the first sign of resistance. So many people give up so soon, too soon. Now we're going to get into the Feynman approach here, the modified Feynman, and it's going to give you a tool so that you don't give up. But another tool is just to prime before reading. People don't prime with books. We've talked about it on previous live streams, so we don't need to talk about it now. But it's a very, very key technique. It's talked about by speed readers. It's not really speed reading. I don't think that speed reading is really necessarily what you want to do if you're a person who memorizes concepts. There's a lot of fantasy about what benefits that speed reading creates. And I read at the speed that I read very happily, and it's never harmed me to read at that rate because of priming before reading and the things that we talk about in the masterclass. And there's a link in the description below this video on YouTube that will give you some ideas about memorizing and priming a bit. And then the ultimate strategy, right, is don't get stuck on things. Keep reading. Often the answer is a couple pages later. It's very, very important. And it's really, really important you don't give up. There are some concepts that you understand progressively over time. This is, again, that accretion of narrative value or accretion of philosophical value. there's so many things where you're just like, never thought of it that way years later. I heard Jordan Peterson the other day saying that he primarily thinks of what he's doing as essentially Kantian. And that was one of this moment where I was like, that puts a whole new twist on Kant. And yet then, upon reflection, no, not really. That makes total sense. But now it makes a new sense, right? And it's a beautiful thing. So, but it only makes sense if you even know, a bit about philosophy and you have it deep inside of yourself. All right, Reclaiming Life says, is priming before reading the same as pre-reading the text? Oh, well, yes and no, but essentially yes. It just depends on what a person means by pre-reading. So I don't know what you mean by pre-reading, but I would say yes and no, depending on what you mean by pre-reading. All right. So Dexter asks, how would you apply PAO to the tautology concept, for instance? That's a good question. I'm not sure I would, but there's a couple of ways. So for one thing, if you have a number of concepts that you need to memorize, and you have really difficult concepts, like you've never heard of tautology before. What is this circular argument? The conclusion is repeated in the premise, and you're just like, what the heck? You could help yourself by having every station in your memory palace numbered. And then you come to tautology, it's like difficult. Oh man, what is this? Oh, but I have something to start with. I have my 01, or I have my 00, as the case may be, or I have my 99, whatever the memory palace is, however you've numbered it. So, that you could do. So let's say that Feynman, who died in 88 and I think was born in 1918 in Queens, we could, and he's related with tautology, let's say. So then we could take that 88 and let's say that you use what I use, the flute from Jethro Tull, and now the flute is floppy or something like that, and he's pulling it taut. So we get that sound, right? And then he's wrapping it in a circle around his head, Feynman's head or whatever. Like there's many ways of doing it. So yeah, if you get into bridging figures and you really know the dates of your bridging figures, you got oodles of tools. There's no end to the tools that you can come up with. Unbelievable. So I hope that helps answer your question. And let me know if you have more. If you're joining us, hit that thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing, what you're thinking, and if you have questions about all this. So if you are just joining us, we went through the whole memory palace deal of this, but now I've got some more suggestions for you. And basically, if you still don't understand, then that's where I would say you try the modified Feynman technique. So I've talked about the modified Feynman technique a fair amount of times, and I keep modifying it. So you have the accretion of value if you go watch the previous videos, which I really am happy with how successful the previous one was in terms of how many people saw it and did all the thumbs up jazz. Yeah. Tell the robots that you care about the great memory tradition. And Will agrees that's a great way to use a bridging figure. Oh, yes. Thanks for confirming, and dive in. There's so much. I always laugh and laugh and laugh when people are like, there's nothing new in memory. Oh, come on. Wake up. There's so much new, and we're just getting started. We're just getting started. Memory techniques are constantly evolving, and they will continue to evolve. And anybody who thinks there's nothing new needs to get some modesty going on, because I'm super excited for all the new things yet to come. I learn new things all the time. Katie Kermode is going to be on the podcast soon. I have already recorded it, need to release it. And oh, wow, I learned so much talking with her. And I know that the majority, here's the exciting thing. I know that the majority of the people who listen to the podcast have never thought even through a tenth of what we talk about. And not only that, some of those people will never even pay attention to what's in there. And so we have the opportunity to just keep talking about it again and again and again. And every person who comes on the podcast, we can mention them again and again and again. And the thing you got to ask yourself is, if you're still struggling with memory techniques, if you can't quite figure it out, well, we talked about the episode with Dave Farrow today. Reclaiming Life was kind enough to actually tell you the date of the episode. You can just search Dave Farrow at magneticmemorymethod.com. If you go and listen to that, your world will be unlocked relative to where you are with the techniques. And the beauty is that it's evergreen, so long as the brain is not, interacting with machines that carve out parts of it. Speaking of carved out parts of brains, we watched Source Code last night. I don't know why I'd never seen it, but man, what a great movie. It's like kind of sci-fi, kind of, it really reminds me of David Lynch a lot. It's kind of in the enigma genre. Anyway, who wants to talk about the modified Feynman technique? Let me know in the chat with your interest and enthusiasm that you want to carry on, or should we skip it altogether? Let me know in the chat if that sounds good to you, and I will determine by your interest if that we should actually go through the modified Feynman on our chat today, or if we should call it a day. I have time. Please let me know. And you can vote with your silence, or you can vote with your voice. The internet is yours, my friends. Tell the robots, tell the human too, who's trying to get your brain to open up, to be excited. This is not data for later. This is, something that you got to be interested in, something you got to speak up about. And we all got to speak up, or else we risk losing out. But I want to suggest, as you're agreeing or disagreeing, we're getting some hell yes here. William is in. Awesome. Good to see you, William. Oh, you were just saying that Source Code was great. Yeah, it was great. I agree. But I'll transfer your Source Code was great to to this initiative while we wait for people to say whether they're in or not. Reclaiming Life says yes. And I'll just keep looking over here to see if we have consensus or not. Wow, that's interesting. Ooh, that might be more interesting than talking about the Feynman technique. Senket says, let's go ahead with the modified Feynman technique. That's it? Oh my God. Much more interesting to look over here. Oh, that's interesting. All right, Andrea's in. Okay, Dexter says sure. All right, so I'll quit messing around and give you the goods. That's enough. That's enough to inspire me. Good. So I'm not going to go over the normal way that the Feynman is talked about. I'm just going to go into the modified. You can check out the modified somewhere else. And if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing. Post any questions, comments you have. And generally get engaged, get involved. There's good brain science, neuroscientific reasons to believe that your engagement is what will set you free to learn faster if you get involved in the discussion. And by the way, I got to thank some of you, because I said on the last live stream, like, if you're struggling with these techniques, if you're struggling to figure it out, just get involved more in the conversation. And boom, a whole bunch of comments came and people started to write more. And on Christian's video that we did about memorizing poetry, like, it was just fantastic to see a beautiful summary come up that shows, people are understanding just how valuable it is to put what you've learned in writing, summarize things. It will help you. It's a micro action that accumulates value. Maricella's great at doing this. It's really going to help you to summarize things, to write, to engage. It's getting sadly lost, but it's up to you. And it just helps grow the community. So, blank sheet of paper. You don't understand a concept. Let's say it's tautology. You get out a blank piece of paper. You write the name of the concept, right? And you really do all that you can to write what you do understand, right? Write out what you do understand. So ideally, if it's tautology and you're like, well, I don't understand it. Yeah, some memory experts said don't memorize things you don't understand. But Anthony says memorize so that you can understand and you know, like, and trust what I say. Then it ain't going to hurt you to memorize tautology if you don't understand it yet. I'm pretty sure. You could check with the doctor first, but I'm pretty sure it ain't going to hurt you. So you memorize the word tautology. Maybe you like the whole thing of, I got to figure out what that guy's name is from Jethro Tull, the guy with the flute. I should get to know him better, right? Maybe the dates that he was born. I assume he's still alive. His name. There's a memory exercise just waiting to happen. All right, but you might use that. Now you have the sound of it. The meaning is still a little bit unclear, but you remember, what did I say, that, the tautology guy is wrapping his flute now around, or not the tautology guy, the Jethro Tull guy. Interestingly, though, look at that. That's a little bit of magnetic serendipity. The relationship here between Tull and tautology. Wow. But, you've got this stuff. So write what you understand. Oh, well, I know it had something to do with circular arguments, and write as much as you can about what you understand. And this is really, really important. And yes, you're right, Reclaiming Life. A sheet of paper emphasizes that you're helped by writing by hand in an analog format for sure. The revenge of analog is huge. It's very, very important. And if you're struggling, you need to get back into handwriting for sure. But yeah, just write as much as you can, as much as you do understand. If you want an assignment, if tautology is new to you, just write on a piece of paper from memory as much as you understood on the piece of paper. Now, this is where things get modified a little bit. Put what you feel you don't understand into your own words. Write this out. It's really, really important. What I still don't get is why is the argument repeated? Just write out what you don't understand and put those into those words, and maybe put more feeling into it. Like if it frustrates you, it's frustrating that there's all these other words, premise and conclusion and right? And really get it out of your system. Dump it onto the page. This is really, really helpful. And you'll already start paving the path for figuring out what it is that you need to know, because you will have the path to this. You'll have the path to it because you already are starting to know more about what you know, right? You're starting to describe what you don't know, which then puts light on the path of what you need to know, right? Like in this example, we're just making up on the fly. Well, I need to know why that there's this business about premises and conclusions, right? So you might need to go and find out what a premise is. Maybe you didn't understand it enough, right? It's very easy, but you don't think to do it if you don't write it down. All right, Ian Anderson. So I'm going to think of Ian Mackay from Fugazi. Ross Anderson, he was a bassist. So yeah, okay, I think I can do this. Ian Anderson. Great. Thank you for that, William. Really appreciate it. Yeah, good. So incidentally, the Memory Palace, like Ross Anderson, he played bass in, was that his name? Anderson? Yeah, Ross Anderson. I don't know why I'm hesitating on it, but I seem to remember that his name was Ross Anderson. Anyway, he played bass in a band called Sin Eater, and that was in the town where I grew up. And I'll just see Ian Mackay from Fugazi just pounding his bass with a flute. That should do the trick. So it's a really cool memory palace, because I really did see that band many, many times in the particular concert hall that I'm using. And I've really seen Ian Mackay also on stage. And although I haven't seen him with a flute, when I saw Fugazi in Toronto, they had a bell on the stage. And I don't distinctly recall if they ever banged the bell somehow, but it helps. Aqualung. Yeah. Well, sorry about that. But maybe it's a pleasurable thing. Anyway, write what you do understand. Put into words what you don't understand. Really give some language to what you don't understand. I've done this a lot, and it's really, really helpful. It's and I have to give credit where it's due, because I think often about Katie Anderson, which is another Anderson, now that we think about it. So I could use her if it turns out that I've got Ross's name wrong, because I never memorized Ross's name. I just knew him from when I was in high school. But Katie Anderson was definitely Katie Anderson, and she taught me so much, and she insisted that I wrote summaries of everything in the directed reading that I did with her during my PhD. And that was wonderful, because I would often at the end say, what I still don't understand is X, Y, and Z. And then she would, talk to me about it. And then I would say, well, yeah, that's ultimately what I sort of concluded with further reading, or reading a book review of the book, or a journal article about it, or whatever. And I wouldn't have thought to go further and solve my own problem if I hadn't written it down. And I just sort of submitted them with the summaries. And then her noticing it, reinforcing it, even though many times I was able to say, yeah, that's what I sort of found out. It's a repetition from an external source that gets through a different processing unit. And also, I didn't always, come to the conclusion that she came, and we could have a more nuanced discussion about it. And nuanced discussions are where it's at. We need more nuanced discussions. We're really, really losing the ground by not having people having nuanced discussions. And let's not romanticize the past. It's not like it's not like it was a paradise filled with nuanced discussions. I think maybe you could look at it that we're having more nuanced discussions than ever before. It's just that there's more stones to throw at them than ever before, and some of those stones are incredibly lacking in nuance. All right, so there's more though. After you've done all this, this is part of the modified Feynman. Go take a walk. Let it go. Let it go. Try to not make it the goal. Not make it the goal. And take a shower, meditate, eat a banana, relax, let it go, let it go, let it go. Then, after you've done this, and there's good neuroscientific reasons why that you should. If you haven't read Rest, read Rest. You don't have to take my word for it. Rest, very, very good book. If you go, take a shower, take a walk, whatever, you'll often have what are called epiphanies. And epiphanies are absolutely incredible. If you haven't had one recently, then hop to it. They're very, very good. But you can induce epiphanies often by just letting things go. Go for a walk, take a shower, meditate. You'll have these aha moments. Why? Because you go into diffuse mode thinking. And then come back and review your reading, not what you wrote on that piece of paper. Review your reading. Because what you've done is you've described what you know, which you're now going to confirm the truth of it or the accuracy of it by reading the actual source material. And you've made that little gap about what you don't know. You're primed now. It's probably in that source material. You just didn't notice it before, right? And then you review your writing and see if you can spot any errors in your understanding, what you understood there, and if you can fill any gaps. And then write that down. Write down what you solved. We're talking about really, really sentences, sentences. And then, here's the kicker. Take everything to your study group. If you don't have a study group, get one, or take everything to your professor, or take everything to a friend. Talk about it. Talk, and process it. If you don't have someone to talk to, I don't have it here, but get a smartphone or a dumb phone or whatever you got and talk to it. Record yourself talking. Just get it processed. It's very important. Reclaiming Life says, I remember one philosophy class I took in university had a single question on the final exam. What didn't you learn in this class? Ooh, that's a good one. That's a good one. Wow, that's cool. David says, I'm really enjoying your meditation walkthroughs in the MMF course. Feel very calm. Well, that's fantastic to hear, David. Yeah, lots of people have let me know that they just love them. They're asking me to create more, and I always ask, well, what do you think that I should add? And then they say, well, no, it's probably enough. But if you have an idea of like what to add, I can certainly create some more. I have a certification in doing those kinds of things. And yeah, that's really what I had to say today about memorizing concepts. It's not that difficult. A lot of people make it difficult because they don't quite understand how that you take whatever it is and you translate it into imagery. And then you put it in memory palaces. And when you put them in memory palaces, then you're able to find them in your mind. And you're going to find them in your mind. And then you're going to process them, make sure you use recall rehearsal to get them into long-term memory, use the big five, and you'll just have a great time. You'll have so many concepts in your head that you understand thoroughly, deeply, well, and a lot of them can guide you in your life. And so speaking of things that can guide you in your life, I am doing some workshops. They're going to be over 5 weeks in April and in May. If you want to join us, if you're on my email list, you're already getting a notification. And if you're not, you can just email me directly. Somehow I had some technical issues today. I don't know how I did this, but I somehow got the @ in front of my name instead of after. But you can go to anthony@memory-method.com. And my slides are really messed up today. But if you want to join us and you're not on my email list, then just email me directly for information. And I got some more techniques for you before we go. But in terms of really generating wisdom, I highly recommend that you start memorizing not just concepts, but actual phrases in which or that contain concepts. Very, very, very important. But I got more stuff for you today. But I'd really like you to join the Vivid Verses workshop. And so if you're on the email list, you're going to get some notices about it. And if not, you could just email me directly for information. And it's going to be very, very powerful for people who want to connect more with knowledge and are willing to memorize some information that is encased in verses. Now, those verses can belong to whatever you want. I will suggest what I think would be worth memorizing, but you don't have to memorize that. You memorize whatever you want. And I think the effect will be pretty much the same. And if nothing else, you will learn and you'll have all the encouragement you need to put in a structured workshop, it's also a workshack format, the actual training with assignments and some other things that I got planned for those who join the workshop. So let me know if that is of interest to you. And if you have questions about it, let me know. And obviously it's a time commitment where you got to show up at a certain time and go through it and some self-study. But that shouldn't be a barrier because the people that I like to serve, they are people who want to make change in their life. They want to transform and actually be able to memorize things that improves their life. And so that's what the Vivid Verses workshop is all about. All right, so let's check in with our chat. If you're just joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing. David asks, how can you break free from logical, congruous action? I'm struggling with wild rubbernecking action. Okay, so let me try to understand this a bit more, David. Breaking free from logical, congruous action. So if it's logical and congruous, then where is the wild rubbernecking? That sounds like a contradiction. Let me know more about what you're saying, because I'm not sure I understand. Andrew says, what type of meditation do you recommend? I've been doing the Wim Hof method. It's been helping. I also find juggling has given me a massive increase in focus. And Reclaiming Life says, juggling is awesome for so many things. Yes, it is. Juggling is great. So the kind of meditation that I recommend it relates to Wim Hof method in some sense, but let's look at this from the high order, the high level. Meditation is not one thing. So it's not so much that I recommend a kind of meditation. It's that I recommend a dedicated study of the kinds of meditation that are there. And essentially a process of testing and then deepening what's working, going back to new things, going back to old things, exploring, and understanding that it's probably, the breakthrough is never going to come from one kind of meditation or even two. It's going to come from habit chains, habit stacks. And so this is what the next book is all about. The new book that is now with the editor. Heard from him today. He said he's making good progress. Very, very excited to see the first edit. My hope, my dream, my fantasy is that it'll be good to go for starting with the audiobook. Maybe it will, maybe it won't. But see you, Andrea. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate meeting with you today. And I'll get with these comments coming up. But yeah, it's multiple forms of meditation coming together and really reconfiguring what you think meditation is, because it's not one thing. There's multiple levels. So, to make that more clear for you, there's actual breathing exercise meditation. There's chanting meditation. There's cognitive meditation, which is different than chanting. They can be the same. They can happen at the same time, but there's cognition that it will not give you the effects of chanting while you're cognitive. And you can just chant stuff without actually being engaged with it. Look, I can sit in meditation and be like, Chittameva Mahadosham, Chittameva Hi Balakaha, and thinking about something completely different, not engaged with those words at all. And so you've got to understand that, and you really want to feel the benefit of it all together. So that there's that kind of meditation. And there is also a form of meditation that is maybe a bit difficult to describe, but it's called karma yoga. And this is very, very powerful. And it is kind of described in the Upadesa Saram very nicely. So that says, Karturagniya paraputephalam karma kimparam karma tajadam kriti mahodado patanakaranam phalamashashvatam gati nirodhakam ishvarapatam Nechaya kritam chitta shodhakam mukti sadhakam. And basically what that means is understanding that you don't control the laws that govern the universe. You, this body that you think is you, is also governed by those rules. You do things before you even realize that you're going to do them. Your brain has decided. And so you just got to let that kind of go. That's a karma yogic practice. And then the fruits of your action are always going into a vast field that yokes you to future action, including not taking action. So, for example, if you don't take care of something that needs to be taken care of, that inaction is an action that yokes you to further action. So you need to understand that. And then what you need to do is give up the fruits of your action, because if you hold on to outcomes, you will create suffering. But if you let go of the need to have an outcome, to control an outcome, or anything like that, then you are on the path to liberation, because suffering often just comes from expectation, expecting this or that to happen. Expectation is the quickest path to suffering. And so how is this meditation? Well, it's very simple. You just track yourself during the day. See where you're expecting things. See where you're trying to control the laws that govern reality. See where you can let go. Not need to be in control. And just let go of the fruits of your action. I do it every single day. I have no idea. Like, hey, thumbs up, guys. Like, some days I don't get any thumbs up. I don't really care about the thumbs up other than that it tells the robots that humans care about this, right? But and people struggle with this in all kinds of things in life, is that they want feedback. Kids are killing themselves because someone's not Snapchatting their Snapchat and they're not tweet-twatting their tweety twat. And if they're not, well, I shouldn't even say that. That's coming out in a bad pronunciation, but they're just not getting the engagement. They're not getting the response, right? And it's because they're expecting it, and it's creating suffering. And they see other people getting it and they want that. So if you can just track yourself throughout the day, you'll be meditating and watch yourself and catch yourself. And any time that you either catch yourself expecting an outcome or feeling pain because the outcome you expected didn't arrive, let it go. And this is a very transformative practice if you can get into it. And so, basically, if you memorize the Upadesa Saram, I'm not done memorizing the whole Upadesa Saram, but it basically gives you the path to all of this. And it tells you what to do and how to do it. And it basically is suggested there, what are the different levels of meditation, which you want to work towards. And I'll tell you, as much as it's cool and stuff like that, nobody knows. It doesn't know. The dude who wrote it doesn't know. You got to know through your own practice. So how do you know? You learn about all the multiple different kinds of meditation. You practice them. You fuse them. You try different stacks, and you just let go of the outcome. And you do it with joy because it's awesome. It's awesome. And there we go. So, and this is called in the Ribhu Gita, Paragati, the ultimate goal. The ultimate goal. And the ultimate goal as well is to not have thoughts. But that's misleading to a lot of people. So you've got the default mode network of the brain, and you've got the task positive network of the brain. The task positive network part of the brain and all that stuff, like, you're still going to make plans. You're still going to make plans. There's always going to be planning thoughts. You can't survive in the world without them. But you can reduce what's called self-referential internal narrative, or at least that's what I've read it is called, SRIN, self-referential internal narrative. And you can achieve what some people call persistent non-symbolic experience. I'm changing that in my next book because I don't like it. I don't believe there's such a thing as non-symbolic experience, and I don't think there's any good reason to call it that. But I'm not going to do it in a battle way, and I have no expectation of changing anything because it's also a good, okay term. But I don't think it's correct. I don't think it's accurate. I don't think it honors the experience itself. Certainly not mine, and certainly it's not a good description, I think, of what I've read other people describing their experience. But at the end of the day, it doesn't matter. What matters is just that you get there, and you can, and all you got to do is figure that out. What is the multiplicity, the plurality of meditation? How are you going to do the work? And don't be so sure. Don't be so sure. Don't be so sure. Because as great as things have gotten for me in my practice, I can never be certain that it's popped, that it's really gotten as good as it's going to get, right? So if you ever see this movie called Existence, they finally escape from the video game. And the first thing the guy's got to ask is, are we still in the game, right? And so, there's just more to explore. And you just give up your expectation that you're ever going to know. And these Yahoo gurus who are just like, yeah, we got the real deal. And, you need this and you need that. Give it a rest, my friends. Nobody knows. Nobody's going to know. And even that, who knows? I could be totally wrong about that. But logic itself would dictate that there are things that just aren't going to be known. And if you can just let it go and not be attached to even needing to know, you will be liberated so incredibly, so completely. And, well, there's a concept for you. All right. So David says, meant too logical, need help with incongruous action. Okay. I really need to know what incongruous action means. And do you mean that you need your actions to have more congruity in your life? Or you need more incongruity because you're too logical? because you're rubbernecking around too much in life. So one of the things you could consider is what I was just talking about with meditation. So if you're too logical, maybe you can use that logic to help you understand what some of the gurus are talking about in terms of, meditation and why it works, how it works. Maybe you can look at the science of it and just encourage yourself to take practice and find inner focus, inner calm, and do it progressively and memorize some of the Sanskrit that I've memorized. So Ribhu Gita, I've only memorized 32 verses of it. It's quite a big book. I ain't going to memorize the whole thing. I don't see the point. I'm really glad that Gary Weber did the work of plucking out 32 verses. I think he did a great job because I went and read the whole thing. And it's wonderful. It's amazing. But there's no point in memorizing the whole thing. I can't see it. So that is collected in Evolving Beyond Thought. I highly recommend you get yourself a copy of that and consider memorizing that stuff. Happiness Beyond Thought has his commentary on Upadesa Saram, which again I haven't finished memorizing, but it's incredible, well worth going through again and again and again, and it'll really help you. And happy birthday, Ajinka! Thank you for spending some of your birthday with us today. Namaste, and love right back to you. But I hope that helps answer some of what you're asking, David, because you can if it's that you want to be wilder, you can be more wild and free. If you want to be more congruous, you can be more congruous. Whatever it is that you want to do, basically what you're doing, especially with this tradition I'm studying, Advaita Vedanta, is you're studying more your human psychology, the experience of being what James Schwartz calls a meat tube that thinks that you are David. And I am having the experience of being a meat tube that thinks I'm Anthony, right? And really going through the implications of that and then realizing what's really happening. And what's really happening is that there's a universe that's appearing on a screen. And everything that you experience and everything you hear and everything you see is happening in the chemical bath behind the screen. And you can really, really narrow things down into being in touch with the glowing moment as it happens right now. And see things so differently than you might have ever seen them before. Very, very powerful. But I think that you need multiple forms of meditation working together. And you need to really consider, what kind of goal you're willing to put around this, and also paradoxically let go of the outcome, which is what karma yoga is about. So Dan asks, why is outcome focus bad? It's not that it's bad. It's just that it creates attachments and the need for an outcome. And it's paradox. It's a paradox, right? Because even these things will say there's an ultimate goal here. And we are goal-oriented creatures. And when you understand that we're goal-oriented creatures, then you can have better goals. You can be more accepting of the fact that you you'll win some of the time. Other times you won't. And you do it anyway because you're not afraid and you're not needing of an outcome, right? So outcome focus is bad when it cripples you, and it cripples so many people because they want an outcome so badly. They want to know if it's going to work before they spend the time. They want to know, etc., etc. It's almost the outcome is more important to them than the actual adventure, which is very sad, right? Because it's the adventure that matters. That's where the outcome happens. The outcome happens along the way, and there's no two ways about it. So it's not that outcome focus is bad. It's that it can be so bad that it kills people. And it literally does. And they can't see that it's their ego, their mind that's producing it. And they're not realistic about outcomes. And they're not willing to let go the fruits of their labor, which is what it says in what I chanted there, or recited, whatever you call it, from the Upadesa. It's very wise what that is teaching there. And by the way, it's what the top performers in the world know how to do. Tennis players, right? Tennis players, they call it checking the strings. They don't need to check the strings. They've got the most expensive rackets in the world, these top performers, right? They just hit a ball, they lose a point, or they gain a point. Doesn't matter. They distract themselves and they check their strings. Checking the strings. And then back into the zone. Because it's the game that matters. And if you're focused on winning, if you're focused on this, that, and the other thing, no. You gotta let it go. Gotta let it go. There's a book I want to read called The Paradox of Intention that apparently is all about this. So that's going to be very, very good. All right. So let's finish up what we're doing here. I got more techniques for you that'll help you. So you've got the Feynman Technique in your grip. I'm going to catch up with any more chats that have coming up here. But if you're joining us, hit the thumbs up. Let me know where you are in the world, what you're doing. If you have questions, pop them in, and more techniques. So ask yourself else questions. When you're writing out what you understood, what else did I understand? What else do I understand about this? What does it connect with? What else does it connect with? Go 5 levels deep. What else? What else? What else? What else? What else? Then ask other things around this. When you say, I don't understand, why the premise is repeated in the conclusion or whatever, what else don't you understand? You might not know it because you never encountered it to misunderstand it in the first place, but push. What else don't I understand? What else? What else? What else? Very, very important. This will help you incredibly. What else? What else? What else? Remember, if you remember nothing else from today, 5 levels of what else. Write it down. Write it down. Get in the habit of doing it. Every time you don't know, you don't understand, write down what you understand. Say, what else do I understand about it? What else does it connect with? Etc. You can do it in your mind, but it's better if you write it down. And then go through the magnetic modes. Always go through the magnetic modes. They're awesome. Speaking of the else, it's like who, what, where, when, why, all that stuff can come into play, just as all the magnetic modes can come into play. Very powerful. And then understand that you need to rest. You need to relax. We already talked about this. Go for a shower, meditate, etc. This is stress and release. So focus on what you're doing, relax, and let it go. Let it go. Then, of course, after memory, you want to compound with the big 5. So you've memorized something, you've understood it, you filled in the gaps. Big 5, right? Talked about the big 5 many, many times. And then, of course, the kingpin is to teach others. Teach others. And why? Well, because when you teach others, you teach yourself. And you find more of the gaps. You find more of what you don't know. Very, very important. And so, Reclaiming Life shares The Practicing Mind by Thomas Sterner is really good about doing everything for the present, not the outcome. Great. Another great book suggestion. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, everybody. So thanks for being here today. If you are interested, I haven't counted how many of these I have left, but if you want the memory connection, I'm going to offer it for as long as I feel called to offer it to y'all on YouTube only. Go to magneticmemorymethod.com/TMC. I'll send you one. If you want it signed, let me know that you want it signed, and I'll do that for you. And get it before that I get around to emailing the list, because they'll gobble up all the remaining copies. They gobbled up the first half so quickly that we got overwhelmed. We were carrying endless envelopes to the post office, and wow, that was amazing. And thanks for everybody who did that before. And very, very interesting what has happened as a result. And this is Paul Deary. He, shortly after he got this, he there's a video of him on YouTube. He went and recited 100 digits from pi, which was amazing, and it'll help you. This book in particular will help you if you're not setting goals properly, and not setting goals properly for memory, and that paradox of letting go of the outcome. And again, get in touch if you're not on my email list and you want to join. I see a bunch of emails came in already. If you want to join Vivid Verses, and we'll get you in. So thank you, everybody. I appreciate your question about the magnetic modes, Dexter, that you can look up on the Magnetic Memory Method website. I have to get going because I have a meeting, and I'm very, very excited about this meeting. So we'll catch up on that topic a different time. But again, if you want to grab one of these, TMC, magneticmemorymethod.com/TMC, get the free memory improvement kit. If you're not making memory palaces, you might like to get started. And memorizing concepts is really super easy. I linked in the video below the first video I made years ago, the production quality, etc. But as we saw today, you can have the best production quality in the world, but if the light goes off before you start and then you have to turn it on again, then that doesn't matter. What was it? Ian Anderson from Jethro Tull? I think that was right. Yeah. Had a great session today. Thanks, everybody. I really appreciate it. Always enjoy meeting with you live when we have the opportunity to do so. If you haven't hit that thumbs up, please do so. If you're new here and you're not subscribed to this channel, get subscribed. And always come to magneticmemorymethod.com for your memory training needs. And we'll see you next time. And until then, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye. Oh, I want to wave better. I want my hand on the screen. Bye-bye. And some special greeting. Let's just make one up in a new one. Doodly dot boop bop a dee. That's my new guru greeting. No gurus in the house. Just humans helping humans, and honored and privileged to do so. And good night to you as well, David. Hope that helped you out. And just see what you can do to use what we talked about today in terms of the Feynman to maybe clarify what you might need, what you could do, what you know about what you want to have happen, what you know the solutions might be to what you want to have happen, and then think, what do I not know yet that I need to know? And even just 5 levels. What else? And you might be surprised by just how many solutions you already have. And when I do this exercise, usually what I find is, I haven't read this book yet, haven't taken that course yet, and there the path is, right in front of me. So that's what I would suggest finally, and thank you for your good night, and I wish you a good night as well. It's actually 12 p.m. here for me in Australia, and I'm going to go to a very exciting meeting that I'm just happy as peaches about and looking forward to. So thank you again, everybody, for being here, and as I always like to say, until we have a chance to speak again, keep yourself magnetic. Bye-bye.